starting Zayin Amud Beis, the Mishnah 6, 7, 8 lines on the bottom. Says the Mishnah. The Mishnah is going to discuss which is the case that the pasuk was referring to when it said that an accident happened and we send the person to Golus. So the first option is Nishmat HaBarzel, a person swinging an axe, and Nishmat HaBarzel, the metal axe had slipped mikatoi from its handle. So it dislodged, it disconnected from its handle, v'harg, and it killed. In this case, the metal axe head went flying. Rabbi says it does not go to Golus. The Chacham say it does go to Golus. That was one example. Second example, if the wood that was being chopped went flying, that means the guy is swinging and he's chopping the log, and a piece of the wood which is being chopped went flying. Rabbi says he does go to Golus. The Chacham say it does not go to Golus. So in summary, what we have here in the Mishnah is a machlokes. What is the classic example of a person going to Golus? The pasuk gives us a story where a person is chopping wood in a forest and something went wrong and that caused a person to get killed. The question is, what went wrong? The Rabbanon in the Mishnah hold what went wrong was the axe head came off the axe handle and went flying. Rebbe says that's not the case. The case in the Mishnah, the case in the pasuk is that he was chopping wood and a piece of the log which he was chopping went flying and it killed. The Gemara is going to start off with Rebbe trying to prove his position.
To me, like the Mishnah to me is ununderstandable by itself until you get into this brayse.
Meaning why they argued?
No, like to me it's ununderstandable until you reach. Yeah.
Well, we just see the din, right? Just the Mishnah just tells us the din, doesn't explain why. Which says, according to Rabbanon, the case that's Chayav Golus is when the guy is swinging the axe and the head of the axe flew off and killed somebody. According to Rebbe, the case that's Chayav Golus is when he was chopping wood and the wood which he was chopping went flying and killed somebody. Where do we know that from? We have no idea. That's where the Gemara is going to come in. But before we see the Gemara, it's important to just see the pasuk that discusses this accident. In our Gemara, it's number Vav in the Torah on the right margin. So it says as follows: a person is going to come upon his friend in the forest, lach the beitzim to chop wood, and his hand will swing by gars on the axe, lichrois ha'etz, to cut the wood. Those 4 words are going to be key. All our focus is going to be on those 4 words. Means the metal disconnected, from the wood. And the 2 ways to translate that would be, according to the Rabbanan, they will translate the metal itself disconnected from the wooden handle. And according to Rebbe, it's going to be read the metal disconnected a piece from the wood which he was chopping. That's as far as we need to see. Says the Gemara, line 47, 5, 6 lines on the bottom. Tanya learned in a brayso, Rebbe said to the Chacham, I'm going to prove my point. Because the pasuk that said the metal disconnected from the wood, the 2 options, which wood are we talking about? You Chachamim claim it's talking about the wooden handle. I claim it's talking about the wood which was being chopped. Says Rebbe, V'chi Nemar, does the pasuk say, quote, V'nosh shal habarzel, the metal disconnected, me'eit soy, from its wood? It doesn't say me'eit soy, from its wood. V'haloi loy nemar, but it doesn't say ella. Rather, what does it say? Min ha'etz, from the wood. The difference of saying its wood or the wood would mean the wood which was being chopped. Its wood would be the wooden handle. So the fact that the pasuk said min ha'etz, not me'etz soy, is the first indication that we're talking about the wood which was being chopped. That was one proof that Rebbe brought. Void, another proof, 5 lines to the bottom, Zayin Amud Beis. Another proof Rebbe brings, he says, Nemar eitz lamato, v'nemar eitz lamalo. It says the word quote-unquote eitz, lamato, towards the end of the pasuk. V'nemar eitz, and it says the word quote-unquote eitz, lamalo, towards the beginning of the pasuk. Let's take a look at the pasuk for a second on the board. I only wrote those 2 little phrases. The pasuk says the guy comes into the forest, lichrois ha'etz, to chop the wood. There's no doubt which wood that's talking about. That's talking about the log which is on the ground or the tree that he's chopping. The pasuk continues and says, "V'nosh shal habarzel, the metal disconnects mino eitz, from the wood." There are 2 ways to explain it: either the wooden handle or the wood which is being chopped. On that, Rebbe says the word ha'etz is the same in the beginning of the pasuk and in the end of the pasuk. Just like when it said ha'etz in the beginning of the pasuk, that's talking about the eitz, the wood which is being chopped. So too, when it says ha'etz in the end of the pasuk, it's talking about the wood which is being chopped. So the only way to explain that is the metal disconnected a piece min ha'etz from the wood which is being chopped. So that's Rebbe's second proof that he uses the word eitz in both places. That's the end of the brisa explaining why Rebbe says that eitz, why Rebbe says that the eitz is talking about the wood which is being chopped, and the Rabbanan say that we didn't explain the position of the Rabbanan yet. Amar Rav Chiya bar Ashi, 3 lines to the bottom says Rav Chiya bar Ashi. Amar Rav in the name of Rav. Ushneim, both of them, meaning Rebbe and the Chachamim, both of them mikra echad darshu. Both of them were explaining, they were deriving their pshat from the same pasuk. The pasuk says, "V'noshal habarzel," the metal will disconnect min ha'etz from the wood, and we weren't sure how to read that. Now there are two words spelled vav nun shin lamed. We have them both on the board there. V'noshal, if it's spelled with a kamatz, v'noshal means it itself disconnected. If it's spelled v'nishal with a chirik, it means it disconnected something else. The proper spelling for v'noshal would be vav nun aleph shin lamed. Vav nun aleph shin lamed. The Torah didn't write that. The Torah wrote vav nun shin lamed, yet it's pronounced v'noshal as if there was an aleph there. Very often we have in the Torah something called a kriyu ksiv, when something is written one way and it's pronounced a different way. So here you have a word which is, it's spelled vav nun shin lamed. The classic pronunciation of vav nun shin lamed is v'nishal. V'nishal means it disconnected something else, which would imply v'nishal habarzel, the metal disconnected something else. Min ha'etz, a piece of the wood which is being chopped. However, when you hear the Baal Koreh reading it, he reads it like that, v'noshal, as if there was an aleph there. There's no aleph, there's like an invisible aleph there. And v'noshal means it itself disconnected. So when we have v'noshal habarzel min ha'etz, if the proper explanation of this pasuk is v'noshal habarzel, the metal disconnected itself, min ha'etz, from the wood, that means the metal came off the wooden handle. If it would be v'nishal habarzel min ha'etz, that would mean v'nishal means it disconnected something else. So v'nishal habarzel, the metal disconnected something else. You know what it disconnected? Chop min ha'etz, from the wood which was being chopped. So the Rav Chiya bar Ashi is going to say the machloikas in this Mishnah is actually a machloikas if this word is, if the primary meaning of this word is v'noshal or v'nishal. If it's v'noshal, it means v'noshal habarzel, the metal itself disconnected and went flying. If it's v'nishal, it means the metal disconnected something else. Now, everybody agrees that it's spelled vav nun shin lamed in the Sefer Torah, and everybody agrees that the Baal Koreh reads it v'noshal as if there's an aleph in there. The question is, do I give the primary meaning to the way the Baal Koreh reads it, or do I give the primary meaning to the way it's written in the Sefer Torah? And this is really a universal machlokes. Anytime we have a word which is written and spelled in the Sefer Torah one way, yet it's pronounced a different way, which you have numerous times in the Torah, which version is the primary meaning of that pasuk? Says the Gemara. Let's go back 3 lines to the bottom. Both of them, meaning Rebbe and the Rabbanan, mikra echad darshu, both of them were explaining the same pasuk. The pasuk said v'noshal habarzel min ha'etz. Rebbe says yesh aim. Yesh aim means the main meaning, the primary meaning is l'mesiris, the way the Sefer Torah is handed over. Sefer Torah is handed over through writing. How is this word written? It's written as if it says v'nishal, which means it disconnected something else. V'nishal ksiv. It's written as if it says v'nishal, which means the metal accent disconnected something else, namely a piece of the log which is being chopped. Rabbanan Savri, the Rabbanan say no. Yesh aim limikra. The primary meaning of the pasuk is the way mikra is the Baal Koreh, the way it's read out loud in the shul. And on the next word I put in Nekudos, v'noshal karinon. It's read v'noshal with a kamatz, and that means it itself disconnected. And therefore, the Chachamim explained, the Rabbanan explained it to mean that it disconnected itself, it fell off its wooden handle, and Rebbe explained it to mean that it disconnected a piece of the wood which is being chopped. That's a very nice explanation, but the Gemara just has a problem with that. Because according to this explanation, Rebbe always goes according to the way we write the word in the Sefer Torah. And we're going to see that Rebbe is actually on the list of Tanoim, who says when you have a conflict between the way it's written and the way it's pronounced, we go according to the way it's pronounced. Says the Gemara, Rebbe yesh aim l'mesiris svirulei? Question mark, exclamation point on the bottom of the Amud. Does Rebbe really say yesh aim l'mesiris, that the primary meaning is the way it is written? Top of the next page, Rabbi Yitzchak bar Yosef, Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yitzchak bar Yosef said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that the following 5 Tanoim, Rebbe, Rabbi Yehuda ben Royetz, Ubei Shammai, Reb Shimon, Rabbi Akiva. These 5 Tanoim, and I underlined Rebbe on the beginning of the line, Kulu Sri, because that's the point. Kulu Srilu, they all hold Yesh Eim Lemikra. That the primary way to understand the pasuk is the way it is read by the Balkaira. So how could you tell me that Rebbe here is saying that the pasuk goes according to the way it is written in the Sefer Torah? On that, the Gemara answers, you're right. Normally Rebbe goes according to the way the Balkaira pronounces it. However, Hainu, this is why to Ka'amar Lehuva Oid. The Rebbe brought a second proof. Remember, Rebbe proved, just like Eitz earlier in the pasuk is the wood which is being chopped, so to Eitz later in the pasuk is the wood which is being chopped. Rebbe says this is the exception. Normally, when I see a pasuk which is pronounced one way and written a different way, I go according to the way it's pronounced. However, this is going to be the exception. In this case, I will explain the pasuk the way it is written because of my proof that it says Eitz earlier and later in the pasuk, and I want them to have the same meaning in both cases. Okay, 4 lines on the top of Chazara. A few lines before the Mishnah. Amar Baba says Rav Papa. Now, there's one more proof, one more point in the machlokes between Rebbe and the Rabbanan. In the case of the Rabbanan say that the weapon which killed, which was part of the axe, part of the weapon was in the hand of the killer. He's holding an axe, part of it is in his hand, and part of it went flying. Rebbe says no. None of the weapon was in the hand of the killer. The weapon is a log which was being chopped. He never even touched that with his own hands. It was something that was in his hand which hit the log, and that log went flying and killed. So the Gemara is going to bring a similar case. Rav Papa says Rav Papa. Just a story. Man, there was a person, the Shada, that threw Pisa, a clod of earth, Ladikla onto a palm tree. He was trying to knock some dates down. Ba'asar Tamri, and he detached the dates. Ba'azal Tamri, the dates went, the Katla, and they killed. The whole cluster of dates fell down and killed somebody. So in this case, the weapon was the cluster of dates. That weapon was never handled by the killer. This is similar to the wood which is being chopped. Says the Gemara, Bonu l'machlokes, we've come to machlokes in this case. The Rebbe, Rabban, and Rebbe is going to say Chayil, because the clod of earth which he threw is like the axe, and the cluster of dates which fell is like the wood which is being chopped. The Rabbanon and the Rabbanon are going to say Pater, because only when the axe itself goes flying and kills is he going to be Chay. Says the Gemara Pshita, this is exactly the same as the case of the axe and the wood. What's the Chiddush here? On that, the Gemara answers, you may have thought that this case is so far removed, because when the dates fell, this person was already done with his action. He threw it, and then a few seconds later it hit the dates. What may you have thought? You may have thought it's considered a secondary force. It's considered that it doesn't really relate back to the killer. And even Rebbe would say that he's Pater. Kamash Malon comes Rav Papa to tell us that in this case Rebbe is going to say he is Chayav. So the Gemara wants to know if this is still if these dates falling are still attributed to the killer because he threw the clod of earth which hit the dates which later went and fell. So what would be considered too far removed to be Chayav according to Rebbe? Says the Gemara, Ella, rather, Koyach means a secondary force which is too distant to be Chayav. The Rebbe, according to Rebbe, Heichi Mishkachasla. How would that be found? What case would be considered no longer his fault because it's so far removed? On that, the Gemara answers, going for example, the Shodo Pisa threw a clod of earth, Umachil Garma that hit a branch. Vazal Gamra, then the branch went, Umachil Kavas, and that hit the cluster of dates. Va'asar Tamri, and they detached the dates. Then Vazal Tamri, the dates went to Katal and they killed. That's going to be the case that even Rebbe is going to say that's way too far removed. It's one thing hit another, and the third thing went and killed. That's no longer going to be considered the responsibility of the killer, and therefore, even according to Rebbe, he's going to be Pater. Okay, let's get on to the new Mishnah. This new Mishnah has 4 din. Din number 1. Hazar Kevin Shishram, somebody throws a stone into the Shishram, to public property. Varg, and it killed. Harei Zagal, he will go to Galus. Period. Now, if you've never seen the Gemara on this before, you may wonder, isn't this gross negligence, throwing a stone into the street? The Gemara is going to find exactly what the case is. Din number 2. Rabbi Eliezer Yaakov says, Im if after the rock left the hand of the killer, the victim stuck out his head, the kibble, and he received the rock in his head and he died, he will be Pater. Meaning, the case of Galus is only going to be Chayav if when the weapon went flying, the victim was already there. But if the victim walked into the trajectory of the weapon, then the killer is going to be Pater. Case number 3. Zarka 7 lechatzeiroi. If a person threw something into his own private yard, threw a stone into his own backyard, Varig and it killed. Now, it will depend. We saw this on the previous summit already. If the victim had permission to enter there, then the killer will go to Galus. If the victim did not have permission to enter there, the killer does not go to Galus. How do we know this? Because the pasuk says, quote, underline the next word, Bayar, end quote. That if a person is going to come upon his friend in the forest, the Torah set up the story to be taking place in the forest. Why in the forest? Because Ma'ayar, just like a forest, is unique. That is Rishus L'Nizik U'Lamazik. The Kanis L'Sham, the Nizak, the victim, and the Mazik, the killer, both had permission to enter there. Avkol, so to every case of Golus, is only going to be Chayiv if Rishus was permission. L'Nizik for the victim, L'Mazik, and the killer, the Kanis L'Sham to enter there. Yotza, this will exclude Chazara Ba'albayis, a private yard, chain Rishus L'Nizik, L'Kanis L'Sham, that the victim did not have permission to enter there. So in the case that the victim was not meant to be there, so the killer is not going to be Chayiv. That was the third din in the Mishnah. Fourth din in the Mishnah, Abba Shaul says there's another specific thing about the example that the Torah gave. The Torah described the killing to be taking place during the act of chopping wood. Now, chopping wood is not something which is a mitzvah to do. It's something a person chose to do. Says the Gemara, it says the Mishnah, Abba Shaul says, just like chopping wood is unique, that it is rishus, it's an optional activity, it's not something which there's a mitzvah to do. Afkol, so to every case of galus, a person will only go to galus if he killed while doing rishus, while doing something which is an optional activity. Yatza, this will exclude if a father is hitting his son in order to get him to do the right thing, which is a mitzvah. Or a Rebbe is hitting his Talmud in order to get him to do the right thing, which is a mitzvah. Ushliach Bezin, or a person that's appointed by Bezin to give malchus to a person that didn't have Eiro, to punish someone who didn't have Eiro. In these three cases, the aggressor, the killer, was doing a mitzvah, and therefore, if he killed by accident during that time, he's not going to be chayav golos. The Gemara is first going to attack the first din of the Mishnah. The Mishnah says someone throws a stone to Rosh Hashanah and he kills, he's going to be chayav golos. And we all know that if a person does something grossly negligent, he's almost amazed he doesn't go to galus. Galus is only for a person that really wasn't so responsible for what he did, wasn't so negligent. So the Gemara starts off with Rosh Hashanah. He threw a stone into the street, Mezidu. That should be considered a Mezid and he should not go to galus. Question mark. Rav Shmuel Bar Yitzchak, says Rav Shmuel Bar Yitzchak, we have to interpret this case to be talking about not a guy that's just wildly throwing stones into the street, rather b'soiser as kaislai. He was knocking down his wall, he was doing demolition in order to do some construction. He wasn't just an insane maniac throwing stones into the street. He was doing some construction, and he knocked his wall into the street, and that's when he killed. Period. There's a lot of question mark period. Every couple of words is a new step. So the Gemara asks, wait a minute, even then, Iboy question mark. He should have looked where he was knocking down his wall. It's not an excuse. It's not an excuse that he was knocking down his wall and it's a reasonable activity. Even then, he should have looked. On that, the Gemara answers in line 25. Period. He was doing demolition, knocking down his wall at night. So, it's not so busy, the street. Maybe he doesn't have to look. The Gemara says, no, we're not letting you get away with that. But Laila Nami, the Gemara asks, at night also, he should have looked. He should have looked where he was knocking down his wall even at night. So that's not an excuse. And again, anytime there's no excuse for doing that, he's too close to being a mazid, he's too negligent, and Golos is not going to help him. He shouldn't go to Golos. On that, the Gemara answers, the case is, besides says, Kaisloi la'ashpa, period. When the Mishnah says he was throwing stones into Rosh Hashanah, it didn't mean a street. It meant public property. What public property was it? It was a garbage dump. It was a landfill. Of course, it's public property. Anybody's allowed to go dump their leaves there or dump their stuff there. But it wasn't the street, which is a busy thoroughfare. That's the Gemara's answer. The Gemara is still not satisfied. The Gemara says, Haya Ashpa. This garbage dump, Heichi dump. Question mark. What is the case? What was the case that he was knocking down his wall into a garbage dump? Ishchichi barabim. Now we have to understand in those days they didn't have bathrooms in every house, so they used to use an outhouse. During the day they would go out into the fields, go out into the forest, or they would go to the local garbage dump, which wasn't such a busy place, and it was okay to do it there. So the Gemara asks, what type of garbage dump is this? Ishchichi barabin. If it's common for the public to be there, and the Rashi explains to use it as a bathroom, then paisheyahu. Then he is grossly negligent, And therefore, should he go to Golos? Clearly not. He should be potter from Golos because he's too close to being amazing. And Eloi Shchichi Barabim, if it's not common for the public to use it, then Onusu, then he's totally absolved of any guilt, and he should be potter. So either way, he shouldn't go to Golos. So again, we're back to our question. What is the case in the Mishnah that he's going to be chayav Golos? He's either too much of a mazid or too much of an oinus. Amar Papa says is a very specific case. This din was not needed in the Mishnah only for the following case. Last, where there was a garbage dump hasuya, which was made lefanis baba laila. It was made to use as a bathroom during the nighttime. But the eina hasuya, it was not intended. It was not made lefanis baba yoim to use it as a bathroom during the daytime, which was a very normal theme because during the day you can go out into the fields. At night they didn't want to go out of the town, so therefore they would use this place as a bathroom during the nighttime, but not during the daytime. However, in the third line, there are some people, the mikri v'yasif. Occasionally they will sit there, meaning occasionally they will go there to use the bathroom once in a while. And this person threw a stone into there during the daytime. So now, we can't consider him negligent, fully negligent. This place is not intended to use as a bathroom during the daytime. So right now it's not business hours. People should not be there at this time. However, he's also not considered an einus. Because there are a few people, the mikri v'yasa, that sometimes do go there. So it's something in between. It's not a place which is really used by the public at this time, but sometimes people do go there, and therefore the person should have looked before he knocked his wall down and threw his stones in. But if he didn't, we're not going to consider him grossly negligent, and therefore he will go to Golos. So let's get one more piece of Gemara in.
There's no amount of, because it's like there are people there.
Meaning, it's not meant to be used, but did you ever pull out and there's a guy pulling in by the exit? Yeah. Right? There's a one-way sign. It's not meant to be used as an entrance. But when that side's locked off, people do it. So look before you make that turn. Right? There's going to be a guy coming in at 60 miles an hour, right, going the wrong way. It's just... you gotta make marriage. Right. Kami's going to be punted because it's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah, right?
It's really hard value.
Right. Yep. And then when they get here, they first go to get their coffee, and they're walking into Meyer by
soup,
with the soup, right? Whatever it is, right? Okay.
There was a lady. She got off the public bus, and she fell, and but she went out the front door. You're supposed to go out the back door. So
And
they're putting.
Really, there you go. Right, so you go the wrong way. You can't really blame them. Says the Gemara. One last piece. Rabbi Eliezer Yaakov said, "Was Rabbi Eliezer Yaakov's din that if the rock was flying first, and then the victim stuck his head out, and he got hit, it's going to be potter." Now the pasuk says, "Umotza esreu." The flying object will find the friend and kill him. Then there will be goals. So the Gemara is going to say, must be that we understand the word umotza means it found something which is already there, not that it was flying and then the person made himself be found. So we're going to focus on the word umotza. Says the Gemara, Tana Rabbana, fifth wide line, 31. The pasuk says, quote, umotza, end quote. The flying object, the projectile, will find the victim. And we learn from there, prat, this will exclude, lemantzias atzmai, somebody that made himself found. That means he walked into the line of fire. Mikan, from this pasuk, Rabbi Eliezer Yaakov said, the din of our mission, if after the rock left the killer's hand, the victim stuck at his head, the kibla, and he received the rock, Potter is going to be Potter. The Gemara is going to question this idea that the word matzah always means finding something which was already there from before. Says the Gemara, L'meimra, do you mean to say, this is a tricky quote here. The dal is not part of the quotation marks, but the rest of the word is. L'meimra, do you mean to say, di matzah, that the word matzah, so the dal is before the quotes. The matzah, the word matzah me'ikar mashma, is mashma implies something which was here all along. Ramini, I'll ask you a contradiction on that. And here we just need to know a din about selling property in Eretz Yisrael. If a person sells a field that was his family's estate, so the Torah didn't want it to leave the family, but the guy had no money. The guy was a pauper, he had no money, he needed money, so he sold his field. So the din is, the Torah says, if he later gets money, you have to allow him to buy it back. You have to allow him to redeem his field. It's not permanent, the sale. It's just till he gets money and then he can buy it back. However, there the din is going to be, if he was a rich man, or he had other fields, and he sold his field, and it says, hey, he has second thoughts. He says, you know what? I'm going to sell my other field and buy this one back. Or I'm going to take money that I had in my account all along and buy this one back. You don't have to give it back to him. It's only if he later comes upon new money that he didn't previously have, and now he wants to use that new money to buy the field back, then he could force you to give it back to him.
Does he get it back?
By Yovel, he gets it back automatically. But even before Yovel, he has the right. He reserves the right to buy it back.
So even if he owns plenty of fields, and then other fields, and then he gets a lot of money, he could still buy it.
Right, he could buy it back. But if he's going to go sell one of his other fields, he has a field that's really far.
Money.
Right, it's got to be new money. So if he has another field far away, he says, let me sell that one and buy this one back, it's more convenient. Or I have a low quality field and I'll buy back this high quality field, that he can't force the buyer to return it to him. And over there, the pasuk also uses the word.
With the new, the high quality and low quality again.
If he sold his high quality field, and he has an acre of high quality land, and then he thinks to himself, why am I working hard to plant my 5 acres of low quality land? Let me sell that low quality field for $1,000, and I'll buy back the high quality field. It's just it's easier for me, right? So he wants to sell his low quality field to buy back his high quality field. We're not obligated to give it back to him. Says the Gemara. And over there it also says the word umatza. He finds that he has enough money. And there umatza means he finds something new, which is the exact opposite of how we just translated the word umatza. Again, it says the Gemara, Lamemra, the third word of line 33. 333. Lamemra, do you mean to say the matzah, that the word quote-unquote matzah me'ikara mashma? Question mark, exclamation point. Is mashma implies something which was here all along. Ikara means the beginning. It means something which was here all along. V'ramini, I will contradict that. Why? Because we have a pasuk that says, quote unquote, umatzah. This pasuk is talking about he finds that he has enough money to redeem his field. The pasuk says umatzah. He finds he has enough money, and we explain that to mean prat we're excluding limatzui, money that was already found before, meaning old money is excluded from this rule. Shalo yimkar, he can't sell barach like his far field. V'yigo b'karev, to redeem his close field. Or, put a comma after b'karev. Or, you put a slash if you want. Or bara, to sell his bad quality field, his low quality field. V'yigo b'yafe, and redeem his good quality field. So, that's the end of the kasha. So again, by the flying rock finding a victim, we said, it means finding means the victim was there all along. And by finding enough money to redeem the field, it says finding means he found new money, which was not here all along. Opposite meaning. On that, the Gemara answers, Amar Rava, says Rava, we always have to look at the context of the pasuk. Here we look at the other objects mentioned in the pasuk, the context of the pasuk. V'hasam, and there by the field, that he's redeeming a field, we say mein yana dekra. We go according to the context of the pasuk. And here we're going to explain. Semicolon, I would put there. Hasam mein yana dekra. There by redeeming of the field, we look at the other things mentioned in the pasuk. The pasuk there says umatzah, quote unquote umatzah. Dumya should be similar. There again, the dollar is not in the quotation marks. V'hisiga yada. V'hisiga yada means he's able to afford it. He has the ability to redeem. When he sold his field 10 years ago, he comes 10 years later. The pasuk says he comes 10 years later and is able to redeem it. And he finds enough money. When it says he's able to redeem it, that means right now he's able to redeem it. So when it says the word able to redeem it, it means right now. It says the word matzah, he finds money, it means also money which just came now. Ma hisiga yodai. Just like when it says he's able to redeem it, it means mehashta. Right now he is able to redeem it. Af, so too. When it says quote unquote matzah, he finds enough money to redeem it. Nami mehashta. It also means right now we found enough money, but he did not have this money all along. And hacha, but here by your mikla, when we're talking about a rock flying and finding a victim, mein yana the crow. Look at the other objects mentioned in this pasuk. What is mentioned in this pasuk? It says quote unquote umatzah. It will find his friend. Dumya, that has to be similar. The quote unquote yar, the forest. The picture the Torah is painting is he's in a forest. Now, when was the forest here? Did the forest just grow after the rock was already flying? Clearly not. The forest was here all along. So my yar, just like the forest mentioned in the pasuk, is midi, is something, the isei that's here, meikara, from the beginning of the story. So too, quote unquote umatzah, the friend which was found, the victim which was found by the rock, Nami is also midi something to Isei Meikara, which is here from the beginning. Meaning, in summary, what this Gemara is saying is as follows. The word matzah has a very specific meaning. But that very specific meaning fluctuates according to the context of the pasuk. Umatzah either means something which was only here now and not before, or it means in the opposite, something which was here from before. Bedavka is something which was here from before. We'll look at all the other things mentioned in the pasuk. The pasuk says, now he is able to redeem it. So when it says umatzah, he finds enough money, it means now he finds money, but he did not have this money before. However, by the story of the rock flying and killing the victim, it says there's a forest, and it finds his friend in the forest. Right. Just like the forest was here all along.
Because the matzah is not saying that the forest was here, it's saying that the re'eh was...
Right, but since this is part of the story, we latch on to other objects mentioned in the pasuk. It's a strange rule, but this is the rule. And if the other objects mentioned in the pasuk were here from before, then umatzah also means bedavka, only something which is here from before, and not something new which just came about right now. We will hold it here, and I am out of breath.